All right, try again. That's much better. Hopefully you can still hear me. If you can, just give me a little thumbs up. I assume you can because just trying to be optimistic here. So welcome back to our last session in Diabetes Boot Camp. This one is dealing with problem solving. So as you know, in life, we're faced with problems every day. And diabetes is not unlike any other situation where we're faced with problems and we have to figure out the best way to move through them. And a lot of times with diabetes, it's a matter of trial and error. So we're going to take a close look at all the aspects of problem solving as it relates to diabetes self-management, but also look at some real life scenarios because a lot of times we talk of problem solving more on a broader scale, but instead I like to share some real life examples and together we can work towards identifying a solution. So when we look at all of the problems that we're faced with in diabetes, whether it's related to medications, whether it's related to nutrition, whether it's related to activity, you'll find that most of these issues have numerous possible solutions. And really, what we try to do with problem solving is try to find the most workable solution that is going to be best for you. So, solutions to diabetes may work for one person, but not another. So, this is essentially what I mean by trying to adopt a trial and error approach when we look at diabetes self care. But if we diagnose problem solving from a more simplified basis. We're basically just trying to look at the problem, find potential solutions, and then pick the best solution there. So problems can be big or small, they can be new or old, they can be short term, they can be long term, they can take on a variety of aspects when we look at all the natures of problems with diabetes self-care. But basically, when we're trying to look at it on a step-by-step basis, and we take that first step, identifying the problem, we have to figure out, okay, what's changed? What's going on? What is the main issue? Is it related to the medication that I've been prescribed? Is it related to the foods that I'm eating? Maybe my schedule's a little bit different. Maybe my family situation has changed. I'm moving or changing jobs, so my insurance is changing. It's all about trying to figure out what is the issue that's going on so you can formulate the best course of action to correct it. So, for example, let's say the problem here is that you're going on vacation. Okay, that's isn't really a problem. It's actually a welcome respite. But with diabetes, there's the potential for issues to arise. So we look at potential solutions by brainstorming with your family about limiting dining out, limiting desserts, using an in-room kitchen, and then going forward from there by picking the best option. So the first step of problem solving is simply identifying what is the issue we're trying to fix. And then when we look at the potential solutions, figure out all the tools that you have available. Take a look at what your diabetes care team may have advised as it relates to something with medication or nutrition. So maybe you're on a specific carbohydrate goal for your meal plan. So that'll help shape some of your decision making or picking the best solution. Or maybe you can adjust some of your medication. So that's the best solution for you. But I will find a lot of times when we deal with problems with diabetes, a lot of them are very social in nature, and there's not a real one size fits all approach. And I've found great success both personally as well as counseling other individuals with diabetes is trying to work with your social network as far as the best solution. So brainstorming with your spouse and your family and seeing what the best options are because they're the ones that are around you all the time. They're the ones that are going to help make your choice a little bit easier or a little bit less easier depending on the situation. And it can help you set realistic action plans. And that's why I think when we look at diabetes in black and white, it can be somewhat difficult to navigate because there's a lot of gray in there as far as trying to navigate a pesky family member who insists you eat their homemade chocolate cake, or the temptation to maybe sit on the couch and binge watch a few episodes of TV versus getting up and going for a walk. So having that support system in place to help you navigate all of those potential solutions will make the action part a little bit more realistic. And I think the one other message to take from this, besides, you know, setting your options up with your family and close friends, is be patient with yourself. Allow yourself some flexibility. We've got plans in place for nutrition and medication and activity, but sometimes plans change, and it's important to allow yourself a little bit of leeway and a little bit of patience when we talk about diabetes self-care. And just know that at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, am I doing everything that I can to achieve the best diabetes self-care? And you're the only one that knows the answer to that question. So as long as you are trying your best and allow yourself some patience, it can make diabetes distress less of a thing, because of all the aspects of our lives, diabetes can throw a lot at you. It's just important to take a deep breath and realize, okay, am I doing everything that's within my power to control this issue? So let's take a deeper dive into problem solving. So as a diabetes educator, one of the issues that we often counsel individuals on is that my A1C level is outside of the range. So if we look at an expanded approach to problem solving, we can look at how solutions can arise and how we can test them. So right on your screen, you can see a patient example of the problem identification. Okay, the example given here is my A1C is too high. Well, the barrier, what is the barrier that's making this the issue here? And that's identifying why this is happening. And one of the examples provided here is that I'm not making time to exercise. Okay, well, okay, that's a common theme that we see in a lot of people, not having the ability to or lacking the ability to generate time for exercise. So let's look at some ways to solve that problem. So let's generate some potential solutions. So maybe you have more time on the weekends, or you could ask your husband to pick up the kids a couple of times each week to afford yourself a little bit of extra time. So it's all about trying to figure out what are some potential options for that particular problem, and then moving forward to try to work through them. So implementation planning. So you're talking to your husband about your schedule, and if he's not available, maybe ask the neighbor to watch the kids, and go for a walk on Sunday afternoons. And you can see there, if it's raining, well, then I'll just go to the pool instead. So it's all about trying to figure out, okay, what are some potential solutions? What happens if those solutions don't work, or if they're not realistic? How can I make some adjustments there? And how you generate this, whether you write it down or jot it on your phone or just commit it to your memories, whatever's going to work best for you. But it's all about trying to identify several potential solutions, because this will increase your likelihood of success. Because remember, not every single solution is going to work for you. So it's all about trying to figure out, okay, well, this solution didn't work. I wasn't able to go for a walk on Sundays, or I wasn't able to get to the gym in time. So what are some other potential options? So again, when we look at problem solving, we identify the problem, generate the solutions, and then implement those solutions and assess what actually happened. Were you successful? If not, then go back to another solution, and so on and so forth. So remember, when we look at problem solving, it's all about trying to generate numerous potential solutions and then finding the best one for you. And it's easier said than done. I'm not going to lie. It can be difficult at first, but once you get into the routine of figuring out, okay, what's going on with this particular situation, what can I do differently? I'll give you a personal example. So I get my medications typically filled at a pharmacy, CVS. I figure I can name names. I'm sharing objective information. Well, the CVS near my house is not well managed. Every time I go there, the lines are pretty long, with customer service is less than optimal. And I just find that it's a pretty frustrating experience. And I really am much more relaxed when I'm not in that building. So I've asked myself, well, what can I do differently? So, well, I could try the drive-through. Okay. I could look at shipping my prescriptions to a different location. All right. I can look at if there's an idea or potential for delivery options. So I identified several possible solutions. And what I found is that there's a pharmacy right near the hospital that doesn't have all the bells and whistles. It's just a walk-up pharmacy, just has the medications and nothing else. I find it's a lot easier, a lot quicker to get my medications filled there than using the retail pharmacy. So again, it's an idea of just trying to figure out, okay, this is a problem. Do I need to continue to endure this problem? Are there other ways around it? And then trying out what might work best. So it seems fairly straightforward and fairly obvious, but a lot of times we don't give it the attention it needs because we feel like, well, this is kind of what life is about. This is how I'm going to have to deal with it. But in fact, remember, there's always going to be another way. So let's look at a problem that happens more often than not for everybody, but when it happens to persons with diabetes can be especially problematic, and that is when you're not feeling well, sick days. So everyone with diabetes should have a plan in place on how to navigate when you're not feeling well, especially if you are on insulin or other type of medication for blood sugar management. So here's the problem. Your body aches and you have a fever, your blood sugars are higher than normal, and you can barely keep any food down. What do you do? If you can't keep any food down and you're taking insulin or other medications that'll affect your blood sugar based on food, you could have some issues there, right? So give us some thought. Think about it. I know a lot of times people are reluctant to share some ideas, but if you think of anything that comes to mind right now, you can say it out loud. You can type it in the chat, and I'll give you a few moments to figure out what would you do. You're not feeling well, and your blood sugars, if you're checking them, are running a lot higher than normal, which is not uncommon with diabetes, but you're also having difficulty keeping food down. What are some things that you could do? And remember, when we look at navigating sick days with diabetes, it's important to make sure you review with your healthcare team what are the times or what are the trigger points when you need to call for help. Is there a threshold for your blood sugar where if it's above a certain number, does the doctor need to be notified? If you have persistent vomiting, or do you have instructions on how to check for ketones? So again, these are a lot of different variables that don't impact every person with diabetes, but they're things to be aware of. So I know a lot of you are probably anxiously awaiting what my answers were for this particular situation. So let's take a look. So first things first, unless you're told otherwise, you should always continue to take your diabetes medications. If you have a fever, you want to make sure you're continuing to stay hydrated. So drink fluids, maybe in a little bit more frequent sips to stay properly hydrated. Check your blood sugar a little bit more regularly, because remember, illness can in fact impact blood sugar. Even without food, it can still elevate it. Try to consume carb containing clear fluids to help maintain normal blood sugar. So that would be things like Jello, Gatorade, 7-Up, Sprite. Those are examples of sugar containing fluids that have carbs that can help maintain normal blood sugar. Now, again, this is just a potential solution. Doesn't apply to every single person. And as I said before, it's always important to know when to call for help. So again, with diabetes, when you're not feeling at your best, you still need to take your medication unless you're told otherwise. If you are somebody who is already checking blood glucose levels, it's helpful to check it a little bit more regularly, just in case more action is required. So again, having that sick day plan in place is a very important part of diabetes self-care. Let's take a look at another problem. So I'm going to put a passage on the screen. I'm going to ask you to read it. But this is a situation where I think maybe a lot of us can relate to. This is something that's common among a lot of the people that I talk with when they're, newly diagnosed with diabetes and trying to lose some weight. So if we read through this problem, so sounds like somebody who is having a tough time dealing with diabetes and really not getting the support that maybe they deserve for navigating some of those changes with diabetes. So again, everyone has a different way to approach this problem. There are several ways to handle this lack of support. But first, let's start with a couple of facts here. Okay, so we know that she's a 50-year-old woman, newly diagnosed. Okay, she's on insulin right now, but the doctor says if she were to lose weight, there's a chance that you may not need to stay on it. So one of the things I want to clarify here is that diabetes is a progressive condition, and sometimes the medications are sometimes recommended, and I don't want you to feel that it's because of any failure on your part. So it might be a point where you do require insulin to get your blood glucose levels down, but it could be independent of anything you've done. What I mean by that, even if you're following a healthful eating plan and getting regular physical activity, there may be a time where you still need to adjust medication. So it's important to cut yourself some slack there if that's indeed the case for you. So if we look at this particular scenario and we're talking about the problem here, what is the problem? Individual newly diagnosed with diabetes doesn't have perceived support from her family members. So how can we handle this problem, this lack of support? So here's some things that came to mind for me. Try to start small, maybe start with one area at a time. Ask for some support. Maybe have the family members, especially the spouse, attend classes with you to understand how certain choices can impact diabetes outcomes, and some choices are more impactful than others. Maybe make some small changes in how you're preparing the food so you can be more carb friendly. And in that same regard, limiting the portion sizes of those meals that may have the most influence on your blood sugar levels. But I think more importantly is really working on making I statements with the family. Okay, so on the surface here, you've got a family that doesn't seem to be very supportive, but really it's a family. They typically are going to want what's best for you. So it's up to you to really work on the assertiveness, saying, look, I need help staying on this meal plan. I feel so much better when you're helping me. So using a lot of those I statements versus you statements. So again, that's what that is referring to, just letting them, hey, I could use some help with this particular situation, or I do so much better when I'm doing X or Y, and going for there. So again, social situations, very difficult to navigate, but you can see you've got a lot of potential solutions here. It's all about trying to take that step to generate those solutions and move forward, and not continue to let them persist, because then it can be even more frustrating and make navigation to a potential solution even more difficult. So let's look at another situation here. So the problem here is how to navigate social situations. So here we are. We're attending a family birthday dinner at your sister's house, who takes pride in her cooking. She's prepared a special meal, several courses. Most of these are covered in sauces and gravies. And after this meal, your sister personally hands you the dessert tray, insisting that you take some. And she says, look, I know several people with diabetes and they eat anything. Does this sound familiar? Did I just recap your Memorial Day barbecue? So let's look at some potential solutions here. So remember, the problem is how to navigate social situation pressures that impact the decisions you make on nutrition. So here are some ways that we can handle that and also plan ahead. So we could simply eat smaller portions of the food being served. You can take that dessert and eat none of it, or maybe just a small amount. You can also continue to work on the assertiveness skills by using those I statements. Say, look, I feel better if I didn't eat that. Okay, I would appreciate it if I didn't eat that. It would be much better on my blood glucose level. So you focus on the I and not you, you're going to usually have a little bit better result there. So planning ahead for these types of situations, you could offer to bring a dish that's more close to your nutritional needs. That's a very common way to navigate this particular issue. talk about the types of foods you prefer and how they can be the most supportive, and really just try to caution against overindulgence. And a lot of times that a lot of these social situations that involve food, you would be surprised that all of the social cues we get to take more food that have nothing to do with true hunger. So I think one of the tried and true strategies for preventing this is making sure your conversations are away from the buffet table. Make that one trip to the buffet table. Try to focus on foods that are really your most favorite, and have sensible portions of those, but don't feel compelled to have a little bit of everything, because at the end of the day, no one's going to remember. Okay, so just try to keep those pointers in mind when we look at navigating some of these social situations. Again, any other thoughts or ideas here, feel free to share them, because if you're thinking it, there's a chance that someone else might be thinking it too. So let's look at one more common problem, and that has to do with just the holidays, any holiday really. Um, so here's the problem. You feel good about the way you've been caring for your diabetes and you want to keep doing well, but the holidays are coming. You know, both your schedule and your usual meals will be different. So you got a twofold problem here. Your schedule's adjusting, all right, and your meals will likely be much larger. Your opportunities to eat will be more frequent. So those are the two potential problems here that we have to navigate. So how do you handle the holidays? Again, the holidays, at least here, tend to be synonymous with food. So in that case, you want to maybe look for opportunities to increase the daily activity, check your blood sugar more often, remind yourself that, look, things don't go as planned. You can always try again tomorrow, and it's not really any such thing as cheating on any type of meal plan. It's just the choice that you make. Okay, I think a lot of times if we say to ourselves, all right, I'm on a calorie budget or a carbohydrate budget, and here's how I choose to spend those amounts for this particular meal. But I think you got to be realistic and figure out, okay, going into the holidays, what's a realistic goal for me as far as an amount of physical activity and what my blood sugar level would be, and then act accordingly. So if your blood sugar is continuing to run elevated, remember, we want to try to guard against persistent elevations in blood sugar. Ask yourself, okay, well, what could I have done differently? Maybe not take such a large portion of cheesecake or skip the walk after lunch or dinner on some of those days of the week. So when we look at ways to handle this situation, it's all about trying to plan ahead. And really, I think the secret sauce here when we look at navigating the holidays is scheduling those times for self-care in advance. Know that, okay, I know I'm going to have a lot of social occasions, a lot of dinner parties, a lot of family gatherings, so on and so forth. So you have to be a little bit more strategic in how you wedge in self-care into that busy schedule, because you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anyone else. All right, so just a few thoughts there on problem solving, and circling back to our very first class. When we look at problem solving, it's also about trying to set realistic goals for diabetes self-management. So just to review from that first class in our boot camp, when we look at goals for self-management of diabetes, it's not unlike any other goal you might set. You want to try to make sure that it's specific and it's measurable above all else. Those are the two factors that we want to try to make sure that we have focus on, because that lets us know what we're after, and can we look back and see, did I really get there? So also making sure that it's relevant, make sure that there's a time component to it, and also that it's attainable, meaning that it's a goal that's going to be increasingly likely for you to reach, given that the tools that you have at your disposal. So if we look at goal settings, that common goals that we see in diabetes self-care, and try to make them smarter. So a common goal that people have listed, and this may be something that you shared with me in your goal exercise when we first had our first class. So I want to eat more non-starchy vegetables, or I want to eat more vegetables, or I want to eat salads. So that's a decent goal, but really it's not a smart one, and we need to try to attach a little bit more specificity to it, and make it something that can be measured, so you can see You can take the same general goal, which you have listed on the screen, and make it a little bit more specific by saying, okay, well, look, we need more non-starchy vegetables. How about I just eat a salad with dinner twice a week? So it's specific, it's measurable, it's time bound. I will pack carrots or celery sticks in my lunch each day. All right, so specific and measurable. And then, of course, cutting up vegetables for snacks once per week. So these are just various solutions that can help generate momentum towards solving any potential problem or set the framework for healthy goal setting. If we look at another one, I want to be more active. Okay, well, that's great. I'm not going to talk you out of that, but again, we need to fix it. We need to make it more specific. So 10-minute walk after lunch at dinner, 5 days a week, or a 30-minute bike ride every Saturday and Sunday morning, or I will register and train for a local 5K. So we're putting in action verbs here. I will do this, and this is what I specifically want to do, and this is when I will do it. And when I look back at this goal, I'm going to tell myself, yeah, that was attainable. So that's the other part here when we look at a SMART goal, that A, making sure that it's attainable. If your goal is you want to be more active, and then you say, well, you know what, I am going to run the New York City Marathon in November, and you have not even walked a 5K, then that might not be the most attainable goal for you at that moment in time. So really it's all about trying to make sure you look at these potential goals that you can put into place and ask yourself, is this realistic for me? You know, what's most realistic for you? But I think, you know, all together, making sure that it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely is the key. So that puts a wrap on our curriculum for this boot camp. We call it boot camp because, you know, we want you to try to take some action here. And there's a lot of action items that are going to be coming at you after this class, including completing a survey. It's a brief survey about the program overall. There is a post test. So this post test is open book, open notes, but we're using this post test as a way to also provide an avenue towards getting the points towards your wellness credit too. So for those of you wondering, how do you get your wellness credit? Does it magically appear? Well, you have to take this program post test in order to be receiving that wellness credit. We'll have, of course, all the recordings available. They'll still be posted on the websites that I've been sharing after each class. You'll also have the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one visit. And this is a visit to talk about maybe more individualized aspects of your own diabetes self-care. So whether it's trying to figure out what's the best meal plan for you, what are some activity goals for you, that's what it's for. A lot of times in a classroom setting, we can't get to the best one-on-one solution for you. So that's what that visit is for. So you will have that opportunity to schedule that too at no charge. We can do that all via Zoom. If you're in the Jacksonville campus and you want to come in person, we can do that for you as well. For those of you that are Gator Care members and are getting points for participation after that post test, you should see those points on your Better You Strides account within about 2 to 3 weeks or so. If there are any other questions, again, I can always be reached via email or phone. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you. And I will hang out and await any other questions that come up. And until then, I hope to see you soon. Thanks for participating in boot camp and look forward to our potential one-on-one visit. Thanks.